My husband is considering conceiving a child with his ex after my stepson passed away. Posted by You Conception Drama. I'll preface with the fact that therapy is an absolute given already. So I will be seeking that out. But in the meantime, I need some advice to just process what to even say to a therapist when the time comes. Okay, so the title needs explanation because it is a complicated and nuanced emotional situation. Apologies in advance for rambling. I am still trying to make sense of the entire situation while grieving and just trying to get the pertinent details out for advice. My husband, 40M, and I, 33F, have been happily married for 3 years now. My husband had a son from a previous relationship before we got together. I have been in my stepson's life since he was 2 years old. He turned 6 years old this year, and we got along very well. My stepsons BM and I have never been friends in any capacity, but have always been cordial and respectful on the rare times we interacted, and we never had any issue with one another. My husband and BM are similarly cordial and respectful and communicative around their son's needs, but not really friends beyond that. We pretty much adhere to a parallel parenting style, and it worked fine. 4 weeks ago, my stepson tragically and very suddenly died from an infection. It has been just absolutely devastating for everyone. BM is especially just wrecked. Her son was literally her entire life and purpose as a stay-at-home single mom. My grief cannot compare to the level I know she feels, and I do have compassion for that. My husband is, of course, also exceptionally distraught. I've been doing my best to be understanding and how they both need to grieve as parents. 2 days ago, my husband said he had something he needed to discuss with me. He explained that BM approached him with a request. She asked my husband to be her sperm donor for GOI or IVF, as she desperately wants to be a mom again and wants to conceive a child with the same partner that her son had. He basically made it clear it is something he is willing, even wanting to do, but knows he needs to understand how I feel about it. Well, I don't know how exactly to communicate what I feel about it at this point, but the feelings are not good ones. I told him I needed some time to process this. My husband and I have been trying to have a child of our own for the past few months, so this is even more personally difficult for me to take in. I think I already know that I am not okay with my husband having another child with his ex. But I am thinking of suggesting we offer her financial support to seek out alternative fertility options that do not involve my husband's sperm and, quite honestly, do not involve 18 years of co-parenting. I'm actually not even sure what BM and my husband are thinking regarding that in this scenario. Additionally, BM is 41 years old, so there is a high probability this whole situation would be a lot of money and time spent without any results. Overall, I think I'm just in shock here. I feel disrespected and angry, but I also understand it's not really just about me here, and that both of them are struggling to cope with this unimaginable grief. I would just appreciate some level of advice from people outside this situation. Specifically, advice on how I should convey that I am not on board with this without making it a point of contention. Top relevant comments commenter. Yeah, this is a big no. There are so many emotions here, and during times of grief, they might not be thinking rationally, but having another child to replace when you all lost is not the answer here. I think the first step is couples counseling with your husband, where you state that you aren't comfortable with him fathering a child with another woman while you are undergoing your own journey together. Best leave the bit about age viability out and that you think it would impact your marriage. Then the intricacies of co-parenting said child would also make you uncomfortable. It's terrible that you are all going through this, and I hope that you can heal in a healthy way. Commenter 2BM is trying to have another son just 4 weeks after her son died. That sounds like she's simply trying to bury her grief by replacing her dead son. This is not healthy, and your husband cannot enable her. If he's going to do anything for her, it should be to help her find grief counseling. Op adds an edit to her post. Thank you so much already for the responses. I feel like this is happening to someone else. It is such a shocking and emotional wave after wave, very difficult to process and think totally rationally. I honestly consider understanding and compassion to be personal strengths of mine. So I appreciate the replies acknowledging that I am not betraying that by being a firm no facilitating this situation. I would just add that I am fortunate to be financially stable independently, and my husband and I had already set aside a fairly significant sum specifically for child support. So even had this specific scenario not arisen, I feel obligated to offer some if not all of that to BM since it was always intended to go to her and son. Anyway, I will keep reading through replies. Thank you again, and at this point plan to speak with my husband this evening about feeling it is inappropriate to consider this now and dealing with his grief first and foremost with professional help. Update 1 day later. Thank you again for the blunt takes on my situation. Days are still mostly a blur right now, and writing out my issue and reading through the straightforward advice did help ground me a bit. I went ahead and took action on something I could control. Reached out to my therapist and got a reference for a couples counselor who is specifically experienced in dealing with grief around child loss. I was thankfully able to get us fit in for an appointment this week. After I returned home from work last night, my husband came into our room and immediately started sobbing and apologizing. He had spoken with his dad that day and told him what BM had proposed. My father-in-law, bless him, had apparently really went off on the delusion of it. My husband and I had a long into the early morning talk about it, and he was able to recognize and explain that what seemed like interest in BM's request was misplaced desires. He explained that he's been so focused and excited about the prospect of planning for a child with me for the last 4 months and envisioning life as a father of 2. And it felt confusing to still be feeling that while dealing with the devastation of losing his son. BM's ask was a total shock for him, too. And when you're face-to-face with someone greeting so deeply asking for your help, a solution, however absurd it is, it's not always as easy to think logically. He was receptive and seemed relieved to have the therapy appointment. So I am hopeful that will be a start in unpacking these complicated and conflicting feelings. We agreed that he should ultimately end all contact with BM, but we'll still consider what sort of short-term lump sum financial support makes sense with consult from a lawyer to keep it entirely copacetic. I realize some commenters find the financial part odd, but I just feel strongly about extending appropriate generosity in this transition since we have a means to do so. We also agree to hold off on any child planning until sufficient time and counseling takes place. Also, I just want to address the comments on the stay-at-home single mom aspect in defense of BM. I only mentioned that part to say how entirely devoted she was to her son. She was the primary physical caregiver, and yes, the child support order was enough that it allowed her the option to stay home full-time and live comfortably, but not extravagantly. Is it the same decision I would make as a career-minded person? No, but that was her prerogative, and I do respect that. I really don't know much about BM as a person, but what I do know is that she was raising a kind, funny, and smart boy who was loved and cared for, and that was what ultimately mattered. To say there's a lot still up in the air emotionally is an understatement. My husband and I are saying the right things to each other now. Who knows what it will end up being in practice, but I am hopeful at this point that my husband and I will be able to move forward together. Second update 4 months later. I received many very kind, compassionate, helpful comments and PMs for my original posts, and thought it would be easiest to update here for those that asked because it's a wild development. I think you can see the previous posts on my account in the comments, as they were removed for low karma on this account. So, I found out that my husband did not tell me the truth about BM's request. The truth is that he and BM had frozen embryos when they were together from years ago, and she was planning to use those. I obviously had no idea they had done this, and likely would have never known if not for the fact that BM did have a successful implantation and is now in her first trimester. So my husband was forced to come clean. The distress I feel about everything that has happened in the past 4 months is beyond words. So that's it. That's the update. I don't know what to do regarding so many things about this. At least I have a good therapist. Top relevant comments commenter. So, he agreed to let her use the frozen embryos without your knowledge and is only letting you know now that the implantation is successful. I can't even imagine how you're feeling right now. But what about you? Were you guys still actively trying for a baby? Op's response. Yes, I'm now questioning a lot about what he relayed to me regarding his past and general communication with BM. It seems like they maybe always had some kind of understanding that she could utilize the embryos when she wanted regardless of my stepson's passing. I even think that weirdly she thought I was aware of this or something. But yeah, we stopped trying after my stepson's passing. Of course, I can't imagine also being pregnant at this time. So I know that's for the best, but yeah, I honestly feel really embarrassed to be involved in this like some kind of third wheel. I'm mad and I'm really sad for their future child. Commenter 2. Oh gosh, I'm really sorry to hear that. I was hoping it was done without his knowledge. I understand that BM and your partner are grieving, but this is a big lifetime decision that your partner excluded you from. You went into the relationship knowing about your stepson, and that was your choice to accept. But in this situation, it seems that you have been refused that. What does this decision mean for you and your husband? What does he have to say? Op's response. He just said he didn't expect to meet someone like me and didn't want to lose me. So, he basically compartmentalized things and hoped for the best. It all kind of feels like variations of lies now, though. I wish more than anything that all this could have come to light without my stepson's passing being the catalyst. No one is anywhere close to accepting the grief of that at this point. I plan to let my husband and BM move on with that without me, though. Commenter 3. How did he think he was going to get away with this? I get that your husband and his ex are grieving, but this is basically a screw you to your marriage. He lied to you. Is he now going to go to all the antenatal classes, attend the birth, and have 50% custody? You signed up for it the first time around. This is an entirely different scenario. Has he now decided to put starting your own family on the back burner because he can't cope with 2 babies at once? I'm so indignant on your behalf and honestly thought you had it sorted at your first update. The only way I think you could salvage your relationship at this point is if he signs his rights away as a sperm donor and is not on the baby's birth certificate. Op's response. I'm mortified at how hopeful my previous post reads. I feel quite set on filing for divorce as soon as I can get myself out of bed. I'm not fit to be a stepmom or a wife anymore. Editor's note. Ob's last post was made in November 2022, and she hasn't made any new updates since. Hopefully, she was able to divorce her husband after she had time to collect herself and get out.